All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Danny Miller. I'm one of the Southwest Regional Directors for Oregon Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. I want to thank you all for joining tonight. We're over halfway through Turkey Week and just a little over 7 days until the spring opener here in Oregon. So glad to see so many people out getting ready to hit the woods. A couple things I want to hit before we get going. Before you check out tonight, right below my mug there on the screen is a green button that says enter our Turkey Week raffle. So don't leave the session tonight before you click that button and enter the raffle, because there's a chance for some great prizes. Now you can enter through Sunday. That's when they're going to close it down, and we'll draw a winner and notify you. And at the end of the session tonight, I'll take you to the page and share with you some of the fabulous prizes you're going to be able to win. So for tonight's main attraction, we're going to hear and be able to learn from Troy Radowski. Troy is an outdoor writer for Oregon Hunter Magazine and Northwest Sportsman's Magazine. And he's been nice enough to put together a video where he talks about scouting, setups, and decoys. I have a feeling he's also going to talk a lot about patience. If you have any questions during the session, if you notice on the bottom right of your screen, there are the words ask a question. Go ahead and hit that, type in your question, hit enter, and it's going to be visible to the whole group. Now, I'm a learner just like you guys, so I am not a bona fide turkey expert by any stretch. So if there's anybody in the audience that has an answer, feel free to chime in. I'll do my best there to get through all of them. Another feature is you can vote questions up or down. So if you see a question, you're like, hey, I was going to ask that, go ahead and hit that up arrow and you'll see the number tick up, and that'll help us pick the order. So without further ado, it's a about a 15-minute video. We're going to hear from Troy. Here is tonight's main attraction.
Troy Radowski here. I'm an outdoor writer for Oregon Hunter, Northwest Sportsman Magazine, and a lot of others in between. And I'm here to talk turkey, kind of fill you guys in on some tips for opening day and for first-time hunters. So I'm looking forward to talking to you today. Most of the terrain you're going to look for like open meadows. You're going to look for places where there's a lot of maybe feed, bugs, insects, seeds. Trails that turkeys, you're going to want to look for turkey scat. You're going to want to look for dusting sites where turkeys will dust for the mites and getting them off. Basically, the key to finding good turkey habitat is spending time scouting. I mean, probably the biggest thing that turkey hunters, first-time turkey hunters, really the biggest mistake they make is they wait till season opens up and then they want to go find a place to hunt. And it's like, you can't wait that long. You got to start early. You got to go out. You got to find where turkeys are, whether you're driving in the mountains or you're going up and down the valley and driving around some of these small towns and some of the farm agricultural areas and looking for these turkeys. I mean, you got to find them early and get permission or scout in the National Forest or BLM or wherever you might be hunting and find turkeys. And the habitat is usually focused around water and food. In Eastern Oregon, they love creek bottoms. There's a lot of aquatic life in creek bottoms. Lots of small meadows up there in the mountains, and same goes for over here in Western Oregon. They love the oak savanna habitat. They love the food that the ag lands provide. And so if you look to those areas, you're probably going to find some turkeys. Well, what I recommend doing is just going out, taking a pair of binoculars, looking at the turkeys, maybe finding where they roost in the tree at night. What tree are they using to roost? I wouldn't call at them too much, because what's going to happen during the preseason is just going to educate them. So find where they're roosting, find where they're feeding, find where they're coming from the roost to the feeding sites, and kind of some of their travel patterns and stuff, and just doing it that way. It's kind of like big game, it's just you gotta work a turkey just like it's a deer or an elk. Locator calls to get them to gobble once they're in the roost at night. If you're out scouting, use a crow call or an owl hoot, or even people have used goose calls or hen yelps when it's starting to get dark, and get them to gobble from a tree so you know where they're at. Like if you're in an area and you don't know where they're roosting, and you know that it had just got dark 15-20 minutes earlier, get them to gobble from a tree so you know where to come in the morning. At least you're close to where the turkeys will be roosting. So this time of year also, like early spring, like you're going to want to remember the gobblers might not be mixing with the hens a lot. There's still groups of gobblers that are hanging out real early in the season. It's March right now, so a lot of the hens are hanging out together still with their young from last year, and the gobblers aren't really mixing in as much. But the warmer the weather gets and the day lengths change, they're going to start intermingling and gobbling and strutting and so there's still groups of gobblers out there this time of year that hang together, which is fun. If you can call in a group of gobblers, it's real fun. So the best saying I've ever heard is there's turkey shooters and there's turkey hunters. There's early in the season you can be a turkey shooter. Late in the season, if you're going to kill a bird, you're going to be a turkey hunter, because late in the season those toms aren't going to gobble. They're not going to want to come in. So that's where you actually gotta think a little more. You gotta pattern the birds. We've killed so many birds in mid to late May that they maybe gobbled once or didn't gobble at all, but we knew where the roost tree was, and we knew where maybe they were going to come down a trail that afternoon, and we shot that bird without him even gobbling or even knowing we were there. We were just patient and sat there for 2 or 3 hours knowing that he eventually was going to come through. So if you want to be a turkey hunter and get a turkey, kill one late in the season. If you want to be a turkey shooter, you can shoot them early in the season because they talk a lot. So that's something that's kind of you can shoot for as a goal. If I kill one late in the season, that's more, in my opinion, that's even more of a trophy. So, well, there's a lot of different calls out there on the market. Probably the mouth call is the hardest to learn. Box calls are easy. Slate calls are easy. And you just want to probably start out with the basics, like a basic yelp. Basic yelp goes something like this. And the best thing to do is probably go listen to some actual turkeys, and then, take your box call and the basic yelp is probably the best call for a first-time turkey hunter. If you're talking to turkeys in the wild, if you hear a hen yelping and you yelp back to her and just start talking to her, that's the best way to probably bring a bird in for a first-time hunter. There's a lot of other calls. There's purring, there's clucking, but that just takes a little bit of practice and time. And what you need to do is probably listen to a bunch of people make those sounds, or turkeys make those sounds, or people, or YouTube videos, and kind of go from there and practice. That's what I can say on the calls. So. Yeah, the box or a slate call, they're real easy. If you have a slate call, in fact, I have one in the vest here somewhere. I'd get it out, but I'd probably have to dig through my vest for 5 minutes. A slate call is pretty easy to use if you get it right, with the striker on there and make the right, and then this is obviously pretty easy to use. You make sure it's all chalked up, and you can make all kinds of calls with this. You can do you can cut with this. You can make all kinds of calls, and it's real easy to use. There's push button calls. There's all kinds of calls out there on the market that are really easy. This one, if you're a first-time hunter, you're going to go out there and probably choke. So you don't want to do that. But these are great calls. They sound really good, and they just take a little bit more practice than some of these other ones. So if the birds are talking and you have a turkey gobbling at you, you want to keep him curious. You don't want to overcall and say, I'm here. It's almost like somebody's yelling at you. If you do it too much, if you say hi and he gobbles back, let him make the next gobble. Let him gobble a couple more times, and then maybe throw out a yelp or two after that. And there's been times where you can hunt these turkeys and call one time, if on your initial setup, yelp like this. Get a gobble and then not say anything, and I guarantee you that turkey, even though he might be a half mile away, he probably knows where you're at anyway. So you could sit there and probably not call again, and that turkey will come in. But to keep a conversation going, you'll want to call every once in a while, test the temperature of the bird, and see how things go.
How long do you think it's reasonable to wait before you...
I think gobble calls are probably the only time I'd really use them and have used them in the past is to use as a locator call to get that gobbler to gobble back. I mean, I'm not, usually they're telling each other, hey, this is me. Hey, I'm over here. They're not usually going to come to a gobble call. They might come to a gobble call, but it's kind of a gobble call nowadays is probably a little more dangerous to use out there because you might call in other hunters. I mean, you're going to call in other hunters with a hen call too, but yeah, it's a good locator call, but typically don't use a gobble call when I'm out hunting. So I mean, you can definitely repeat it if it worked. I wouldn't repeat it like the very next day, and I wouldn't even use the same call. I've hunted birds where I've hunted them for a couple weeks and used the same mouth call, and I realized, hey, they're sick and tired of hearing this because it's the same thing. So you can switch it up and use a different call, whatever you choose, because it's going to have a different tone. And because there'll be days where you're working a turkey and he'll gobble back at the mouth call, and all of a sudden he won't, and then you'll break out the box or the slate call and you'll hit that, and he'll gobble back at that because it's something different. And so things that work are good to keep using, but you just got to keep in mind that they're just like anything else. They're smart. They're going to get sick of a certain tone or cadence, and so you want to mix things up once in a while too. Right. So if you've scouted your turkeys and you know where they're at, and you know what trees they're sleeping in, I like to go in when it's dark and set the decoys up. Not within sight per se, but fairly close, where you can, when they start flying off the roost, they're going to come looking for that hen, or when you're calling at them, they're going to come looking to where you're at. Early is good. Get in there early. You're at dark is good. Get set up early, especially if you know where the turkeys are. The mornings, you're going to have most of your gobbling and stuff going on in the early morning. So hunting then is great. Afternoons are awesome. A lot of states don't allow you to hunt in the afternoon. Oregon lets you. So that's definitely a bonus here in the state of Oregon. So, but the earlier the better. If you start out early, you're gonna hear more turkeys early in the morning than in the middle of the day or in the late afternoon. Yeah, you can set up too close to the roost and spook them. I mean, that's the thing. They can still, I wouldn't set up too close to the roost tree. You got to be really sneaky and try to get your decoys to where they can see them once they fly down, but you don't want them to see you. That's why if you're going in the dark, you can get your decoys set up and kind of get set up and kind of visualize in your head where they might fly down. And when they're still in the tree, you can start calling at them a little bit in the tree. And so when they fly down, they know, where your decoy might be. So then they're going to come towards your setup that way. Wearing good camo, that's another thing. I would never wear something like this out there. That's the color of a red turkey head. I mean, I'd either wear a face mask, lots of face paint, full camo. When you set up, you want to set up against a tree or something that's going to hide your silhouette. You use a ground blind. I mean, I recommend for most bow hunters, make sure you use a ground blind, because when you draw your bow back or any movement you're going to make is going to spook that turkey. Their eyesight and hearing, that's their two biggest things, So if you're going to make any movement, make sure you move really slowly. Don't move quickly. And make sure you're not silhouetted out. You have a good background. And if you keep that in mind when you're hunting, whether you're using a ground blind or just out there without one, that'll definitely aid in some success for you. Usually when you set up, you want to make sure that if you're set up like here behind you, you really don't want that bird coming from this direction. You're kind of looking at this 180 in front of you. A lot of times they'll come in from behind. I mean, you can't really help that, but if you're setting up against a big brush line in a big tree, chances are they're probably not going to come through the brush. So you kind of want to, have your shooting lanes picked out and where those birds might be coming from this 180 in front of you. I mean, when I tell people when they're setting up a decoy, it's like you want to put them at 20 to 30 yards at the most, because you want to know what range your shotgun is effective at, or what you're comfortable shooting your bow at. And so that's kind of a gauge. Like if your decoy's at 20 yards. You know, if that bird comes in close to that decoy, it's going to be 22, 24. You know, that kind of helps you judge yardage, and that goes for all hunters, no matter what they're using, whether it's a shotgun or a bow or a muzzleloader or whatever. So if you have a breeding hen and you have a strutter decoy and you put that strutter behind that breeding hen, I mean, that's going to tell the other birds that come in there that that's what's going on. And if you get a dominant tom come in and see that, he's not going to like that. He's going to want to come over there and beat up that other tom before he jumps on that hen. So when you do use decoys, or you know, a couple to a little small flock, you got to remember you are telling a story and you are portraying something to that turkey. So if you have an inferior jake and a couple hens, and that tom sees an inferior bird with a couple hens, and you've been hen calling at that tom, he's going to come in there and he's going to say, no way, these guys aren't going to hang out with her, you know. And so you could even put out 2 or 3 hens and no male turkeys, you know, because the natural thing for a turkey is the hen is supposed to actually go to the tom. So when that tom gobbles, the hen is supposed to, in nature, in real life, that hen's supposed to, so we're trying to reverse nature when we do this stuff. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're out turkey hunting. I always like to use decoys when they work. My biggest thing is having like a hen, like a breeding hen, or a jake decoy and a hen decoy. A lot of people like strutter decoys, which actually they work really well when you get a really dominant tom. You know, you'll put the strutter out, that dominant tom will see that strutter and he's going to go teach that guy a lesson, you know. But a lot of times hunting without a decoy is really a good way to go. I know a lot of guys that do that, especially the run and gun guys that are, you know, hunting in the mountains and stuff. It's like you hear a bird, you close the gap, you call him in, he's curious. They don't have to actually see something to come in and make things work. So it's kind of, you got to figure out if the birds have been hunted a lot. Decoys are very beneficial, but they're not, you don't always need them. It's good to just have a variety of decoys at your disposal. I use these from time to time with other decoys from a long ways away. You know, a turkey can see this. It'll blow in the wind. It's going to be with your other decoys. And that's what I kind of use them for, as attention getters. They're not really going to, you know, when the turkey's coming up close to these things, they're not going to know what, you know, but from a distance. And even if there's a little hill and you set one of those up and that turkey sees the top of that fan, I mean, it's an attention getter, and it might be the thing that actually convinces that turkey to come over that hill, is seeing the top of that fan. Well, that's probably one of the biggest mistakes hunters make, is they don't wait long enough. You know, a lot of times these turkeys, they'll move in real slow, they'll feed and move in, and they might have other turkeys with them, so they're not going to just come running right in. I mean, early in the season, you'll get gobblers that are really hot, and they'll come running in and they'll fan out and strut for your decoys. But a lot of times, if you sit there for 35 or 40 minutes, even an hour, and wait, all of a sudden there'll be a turkey right in front of you, and he didn't make another sound, and you're like, wow. You know, there's been a lot of times I've gotten up and getting ready to go, and I'm like, man, this isn't working, and all of a sudden I spooked that big turkey, and it's over. So be patient. That's a big thing.
Make sure y'all can hear me. A lot of information packed into that short 16 minutes. Only saw one question pop up, and thanks for everybody in the chat adding your own personal knowledge to Troy's story. Very much appreciated. Hang out here for a bit. Feel free, if you have a question, post it. We're still live. Folks are still here. While we're doing that, I just want to remind you, don't forget to enter this raffle here. And I'm going to share my screen with you, if I can figure it out. Here, I thought the share button was going to help me share the screen, but I will do this, give you a verbal report here. So when you click that green button, you're going to get taken to a landing page that's going to allow you to enter the raffle. There's only 1,000 tickets available, and they're $10 a piece. So it's not going to be a diluted pool. You do have to be 18 years or older, and you can win some great prizes. We're actually going to have a mentored spring turkey hunt. So that'll be the weekend of April 24, 25, or May 1st and 2nd. And the winner's going to receive some calls, turkey fan mount, all kinds of extra goodies that go with that main prize. Wow, some Dave Smith decoys. These are made in Oregon. They are very realistic. Thank you for the folks in the green room plugging that up. And then a 3-pack Phelps turkey call and crow call. So that crow call is what Troy was talking about, a locator call. You blast that out, and your hopes is to hear a gobble from not too far away, and it can happen quick. So you blow that call, and if you get a response and you can get set up and start to call, and you can have some action in pretty short order. So the raffle, great, and the proceeds go to backcountry hunters and anglers, and they're directly related to funding our mission, which is preserving our public lands and waters and our wildlife so that we can all enjoy. Also would encourage you, if you're not a member, that doesn't mean you can't enter the raffle, but for $35 a year, it'd be great if you were a member of BHA. You get the Backcountry Journal subscription, and window decal, things like that. But it loops you into what's going on the conservation front, and you have great opportunities to meet some like-minded folks who love getting out and enjoying what nature has to offer. So you'd be remiss if you didn't at least check it out. I see we got some chat going on what can cause a turkey to gobble. Had a passenger jet fly over one time, and that caused turkeys to gobble. Joel offers up there, slamming the car door. Usually a no-no when you're hunting, but when you're in the turkey woods, not necessarily a bad idea. Some other things that I've witnessed, actually a gunshot off in the distance causing a turkey to gobble. So they've got sharp eyesight, they've got good hearing. They still have a little pea brain in between those eyes, and they can figure you out, but they're not an impossible animal. I like Emily's question there. How does one work in bathroom breaks? I don't know about neoprene underwear, but I guess planning your morning coffee good, I'll share with you guys some of the things I've got here. I'm a relatively new turkey hunter. The last 3 years, I've really taken a liking to the sport, have a lot of fun at it. Turkey hunting with Charlie Elliott. This is a guy that famous in the South, really an accomplished turkey hunter. If you can find a copy of this, I would encourage you to pick it up because, one, it's a great read. But what I learned from Charles is that turkey hunters, the true turkey hunter, enjoys telling about his failures and almost as probably more than his successes, how they've been outwitted by these marvelous birds and made to look stupid. And, even in his old age at the time, still being shown up by gobblers. Education of a Turkey Hunter, another super great read. And then I'd have to say my third is Hunting Wild Turkeys with Ray I. All great reads, a lot of fun. And one thing I've noticed about, let's call it the genre of turkey literature, is that these people have a great sense of humor about the bird, about themselves, about the learning curve. But they take their craft really seriously, and they're just a pleasure. So if you're new to hunting turkeys, or even if you're a seasoned pro, I would highly recommend any of those three reads. So waders for, I get Emily. It just depends on how comfortable you want to be, I guess. Okay, well, another thing I want to mention is if you pay attention to our Instagram channel, the BHA Instagram channel, The Strutting and Clucking Calling Contest is on, and voting is going to start April 12th at the chapter level. And I heard a rumor that Oregon's chapter has enough entries that they've reached critical mass. So what you do is you follow the channel, and through the magic of Instagram, it's going to be like a bracket where there'll be like 3 people competing, and you got to pick or vote for one, and then those folks are going to advance, and it culminates in somebody winning it for the country. So another fun thing, and at the very least, even if you're not in, or you don't know somebody that's in it, the opportunity to hear different styles of calling using various calls and hear the different calls. Just another good way to learn. Another thing I'll share personally is that the magic of YouTube, going on there's a lot of content that's been uploaded where you can go on YouTube and say you want it. What does a cutting hen actually sound like? Or what is a gobble? Are they different between breeds? Or what's just a basic yelp? Or what do turkeys sound like when they're split up and they're trying to find each other? Very, very often, there's probably no sound that hasn't been uploaded. So you can actually go on the internet and listen to all kinds of calls. And that's another good way to dial in your calling as you're practicing with, your box call or your mouth call or your slate or your wing bone, whatever your preference is. Question from Emily: what's the smallest acreage that a successful hunt can take place on, especially if you know turkeys are seen in the area, even though they might not roost there? Pretty small. I mean, as long as you've got safe shooting lanes, you got to be conscious of that, because there can be outbuildings and there roadways and things like that. But as long as you've got some decent cover where you can set up, I taken my son up on a property where the guy lets us hunt, and he's got 7 acres. And you're right, turkeys will roost there occasionally, but most of the time they're passing through. So trail cameras can help you pattern what time of day they may be likely to come through, so you can fine tune your time there. But one of the things Troy mentioned at the end of his presentation, and that's been repeated in all of these books that I've read, is patience. Patience, 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 and sit until you cannot stand sitting, and then sit some more. And closely on the heels of that, and closely related, is make sure you're comfortable. Make sure your clothes are comfortable. Make sure you can reach your stuff, because turkeys, like elk and like deer, sometimes they can just appear, and they're right there. And if you get caught, they can be gone in a heartbeat. So I wouldn't say there's really any minimum acreage you could be on, Emily, as long as you've got safe shooting lanes and you've got some kind of habitat, whether that's cover, whether that's feed, whether that's a dusting area where turkeys are likely to come through. So hope that answers your question. Just a hot tip. A turkey biologist from ODF&W will be on tomorrow night. And so if you have any, I encourage you to join tomorrow night. That's kind of our grand finale. You're going to see Field to Table with Tristan Henry, our Oregon BHA chair, and a Hunt to Eat ambassador, as well as Brandon from ODF&W. And those guys really know their stuff. So questions about turkey behavior, biology, habitat questions, you don't want to miss tomorrow night. So Joel, don't leave a turkey to find a turkey. Yes, unless that turkey has seen you and heading in the other direction. And they always look bigger when they're running away too, I've noticed. Oh. All right, folks, we're at the half-hour mark. I don't know if anybody's got any other questions. Let's do a last call for questions. either in the Q&A or in the chat stream. I want to make sure I give thanks to Carla Bauer, one of our board members who's put together Turkey Week. She couldn't MC tonight, so volunteered to stand in for her. So we got to give credit to her for everything you've been able to enjoy this week, and we'll be able to enjoy tomorrow. From BHA, I want to tell you thank you, happy hunting, and get out in the woods, and better yet, take somebody else with you. So with that, we'll sign off and see you all tomorrow night, and thank you all very much. Good night.